Lieutenant Arya Chen tapped her calm badge thrice, signaling readiness as the viewport's magnitude of hostile intent registered across the bridge. Beyond the reinforced transparent aluminum, the stellar Armada bloomed like a malignant chrysanthemum against the ink-black backdrop of space. Hundreds of vessels, dreadnoughts sheathed in multi-layered ablative plating, sleek battlecruisers bristling with missile pylons, and swarms of dart-like swarm ships drifted in lethal precision. Their collective drift, imperceptible to the untrained eye, held the promise of a wrath that could raise moons. When she'd been called to this mission months ago, she'd expected a skirmish, a diplomatic show of force, certainly not an entire armada assembled to eradicate a single corvette. Yet here it was, the entire might of the Stellaran military commanded to crush the Horizon's ghost. And for what? A tiny ship with negligible armament, reported to be on a humanitarian supply run to the dying colony of Galia 3. Intelligence skimmed over that detail, focusing instead on rumors that the Ghost carried contraband technology, that its crew had defied a direct battle council edict 6 systems ago, that it was piloted by someone daring enough to joke with death. Arya inhaled, her boots clicking against the chevron great deck plating as she crossed to the central holotable. The 3-dimensional star chart hovered in midair, glittering star points connected by shifting wormhole vectors. It showed the Ghost's current position at the fringe of Kessler's Belt, a known corridor for smugglers and privateers. But Arya's ship was no grease-slick runner built for profit. It was a Forge-class prototype, a marvel of asymmetrical warfare engineering. Stealth fields ringed its hull, adaptive thrusters enabled blink mobility, and spare reactors harnessed exotic dark matter fuel to spike power surges. Through its modified ion cannons, it was fast, lethal in hit-and-run engagements, yet no match. On paper, for an Armada status report, Arya's voice cut through the hum of ambient reactor chords. Ensign Oleg Tahir's holographic display flickered as he pored over sensor feeds. He was the youngest officer aboard 22. Some said to green for the lines he was reading off. Yet his fingers danced over the datapad with practiced precision. All 3 shield layers are at maximum efficiency. Weapons systems nominal ion cannons charged to 20%. Torpedo tubes armed with experimental triphasic payloads. But their fleet-wide sensor net, we're reading us. At class 4 stealth signature only because we're at extreme range. Arya allowed herself a faint, wry smile. Tell me they can't target what they can't see. Affirmative, Oleg replied. But if they reposition those macro sweep arrays, we'll become a pinhole. She paced back to the command console. We go quiet line. No comms, salvo, no broadcasts. If they want to waste ammunition on ghosts, let 'em. From the starboard port, Lieutenant Sanvi Aerosmith, the ship's navigator, keyed in a series of coordinates. Mum, I've plotted a route through the fractal eddies of the debris field. If we hug the asteroids down to orbital insertion, their wide beam arrays won't sweep us clean. Arya nodded. The plan hinged on one critical advantage: proximity, out here. The rubble of ancient mining operations, chunks of dead star ice, and ore offered partial concealment. It wasn't stealth, but it was close enough for a corvette with reflexes like theirs. Execute, Sanvi. Keep us below radar thresholds. The Horizon's Ghost groaned as micro-thrusters fired. Lights dimmed momentarily. Every reactor core isolation valve snapped shut in sequence, stabilizing power flow through the stealth hull plating. The external sensors spiked. Fragments of rock drifted by in slow motion, the ship's silhouette diffusing among the wreckage. Arya rested one hand on the shelf of holographic comm gear, the other unconsciously brushing the engraved nameplate at her belt, Horizon's Ghost. She remembered the day the name was christened a funeral convoy adrift in deep space. Her ship prior, a cargo freighter called Golden Horizon, had been lost in a hyperspace collapse. She'd been the sole survivor. This new vessel was her redemption, built on Commonwealth funding and her own insistence that sacrifice be honored. Helm, maintain course, she ordered softly. Helm, no response. Her stomach flipped. On impulse she strode to the pilot's seat, the red glow of warning indicators accentuating the bridge's worn edges. The pilot, Ensign Kel Rodriguez, was staring at his console with wide eyes. Ma'am, they're reconfiguring formation. 3 dreadnoughts are peeling off. vectoring to intercept. Arya closed her eyes, counting to 2. Distance, 50,000 clicks and closing. They'll be within torpedo envelope in under 3 minutes. She glanced at the holotable. 3 gargantuan ships drifting toward them, the rest of the Armada fanning out to cut off retreat. The Stellaran doctrine favored overwhelming firepower. They'd perfected the art of puzzle box sieges trap a vessel, then distill its components until nothing but wreckage remained. No negotiations. No quarter. Arya straightened. All stations. Brace for contact. Weapons to red standby. The crew snapped to attention. Ensign Oleg offered a grim nod. Mum, if they go full throttle, even our phase mines won't hamper them long. Arya looked each officer in the eye as she passed. Sanvi with her steely focus. Cal with his knuckles whitening around the stick. Oleg with the tremor in his jaw. I know the odds, but we don't fight to win. We fight to live, and if we live, we'll give them hell. Her voice carried the weight of every life lost in Commonwealth wars. Prepare the mines. Charge the plasma torps. Let's remind the galaxy that legends are built on courage, not size. Each station acknowledged. The red alert klaxon roared. Arya unbuckled, stepping forward across the grated floor as if moving onto a starlit battlefield. The viewport rippled as the Armada came closer, their weapons bristling like a sea of razor teeth. With a final breath, she tapped her comm. All units, countdown to engagement 3 or 2, 1. Engage at will, outside. The Horizon's ghost blinked out of stealth drift, engines flaring emerald as it leapt into the fray. The first blasts from the dreadnoughts washed over their shields, a roaring tide that sang of nearly insurmountable power. But Arya's eyes burned bright with defiance. This was no longer a cargo run. This was not piracy. This was a stand against annihilation. And as the first salvos of plasma lanced across the void, Arya Chen knew the Horizon's ghost would etch its story into galactic memory. Come victory, come ignoble wreckage, or come oblivion. The first strike came like a silent scream. One moment the coves of fractured rock drifted peacefully outside the Horizon's ghost's viewport. The next, streaks of pale blue light guided torpedoes arched toward them, ghostly comets of destruction. Arya Chen's voice cut through the roar of alarms. Evasive patterns. Delta 3, helm. Full thrusters hard starboard. Ensign Cal Rodriguez yanked the pilot's yoke, and the corvette shuddered as its adaptive thrusters pulsed. Outside, the torpedoes split into 3 dazzling streams, tracing the ship's pivot. The first to slammed into the shattered remains of an ice asteroid, setting it ablaze in a flash of superheated steam. The third struck home against the ghost's aft shields, which blazed like molten glass under the impact, shields at 60% dropping. Oleg Tahir's voice trembled with urgency as he scanned incoming sensor data. Another waypoint defense can't keep up. Arya's jaw tightened. She slapped her palm against the holo console, rotating the tactical display until the offending dreadnoughts loomed at the edge of the map. Launcher to battery alpha. Deploy phase mines. Target their flank 3 kilometers out. Below decks, Chief Engineer Soto's voice crackled over the emergency comm channel. Lieutenant, I've got the mines wired through a jury-rigged feedback circuit. They'll plant, but we've only got 4. Make them count, Arya replied. She turned to the weapons officer, Lieutenant Moretti, who keyed the launch sequence. The torpedo tubes ejected for glowing spheres of plasma and dielectric plating. They drifted away like unstable moons, their surface veins pulsing with latent energy. Phase mines armed, Moretti confirmed, fingers dancing over the redouts. The Horizon's ghost danced through the debris field, lurching behind jagged chunks of ore and frozen rock. The Stellaran dreadnoughts held formation, their macro beams sweeping systematically to flush out any hiding spot. Each sweep fracturing asteroids into smaller shards, each shard a potential death trap. Cal's knuckles whitened on the yoke. They've locked onto us. Incoming broadside from the Imperious Flame. Full discharge in 10 seconds. Arya glanced at the flagship's icon blinking on the grid. The Imperious Flame was a cathedral of war, 18 kilometers long, its prow bristling with magnetoplasma cannons. A single volley from those guns could vaporize an entire corvette. Not if we're not there, Arya said, Sanvi, mark a vector behind that fragment cluster at bearing to 70. Helm, engage and cross your fingers. The horizon's ghost vaulted into motion. Weaving between tumbling boulders, the flagship's broadside flared. An enormous plasma bolt streaked past so close the air inside the bridge tasted of ozone. A direct hit would have torn the ship in two. Instead, the blasts vaporized half a dozen floating rocks in a thunderous roar. Beautiful, Arya whispered. Even as her heart hammered, she keyed the calm uplink. Imperious flame, you're tearing up my playground. Why don't you come a little closer? Static was the only answer. The Stellaran command had banned chit-chat. Kill orders were absolute. Waste no more time, Sanvi Aerosmith said calmly. We're in position. Outside, the phase mines nestled in the crossfire corridor. Arya's fingers hovered above the detonator. She counted, silently, 1, 2, 3. Now, she pressed the trigger. The mines erupted in a green-blue flare. A superluminal chain reaction that blossomed against the imperious flame's flank. For an instant, space itself seemed to shimmer with iridescent light. On the flagship's tactical feed, the blast carved a chunk out of its shield array. Dozens of deck mounting points buckled under the shockwave. Across the bridge of the Ghost, sensors reported the flagship's hull integrity dropping to 82%. Direct hit, Oleg exclaimed, relief mingling with astonishment. And ma'am, they're scrambling repair drones. Arya's lips curled into a grim smile. Let them come. We'll see if they can fix a 30-kilometer rupture in deep space. But the advantage was fleeting. The Stellaran fleet reacted instantly. Dart ships swarmed in, firing homing missiles to saturate the Ghost's remaining defenses. Ion beams cut arcs of light through the void, hot enough to liquefy plating. Point defense is overloaded, Moretti shouted. Shields down to 30%. Arya stood, the gravity plating in the bridge momentarily loosening her stance. All hands to damage control positions. Divert every surplus megawatt to the shields. And she hesitated, mind racing. Prep the Grav Surf and Geiger. If we can't slug it out, we'll vanish. Grav Surf, Cal's brow furrowed. That's untested on this scale, ma'am. It's the only shot we've got. Arya's voice was steel. Engineering. Jury-rig that thruster ray. If we can pull 3 Grav Surf thrusts in under a second, the resulting curvature could slip us through a microvoid. Draw them a blank signature. The bridge went quiet except for the hum of overtaxed systems. Outside, tendrils of plasma lanced. Toward them marches of destruction meant to clip the Ghost's wingtips. Now, Arya said, more to herself than anyone else, engaging Grav Surf drive. Soto's voice crackled from engineering. The ancient console in the corner lit up, with erratic readings. A moment later, the entire ship lurched violently, a jarring shift in perspective. Outside the viewport, the asteroids and dreadnoughts stretched into long ribbons of light, then vanished altogether. The Ghost emerged on the far side of the debris field, motionless amid the star-speckled void. For an instant, the bridge was deathly still. Then, across the tactical display, Stellaran sensors blinked back to Life Class 4. Like a faint afterimage, stealth signature stable, Oleg reported. Arya exhaled, her shoulders sagging. Keep it that way. All power to the jump drive. Get us out of. A fresh alarm blared. New contacts. Sanvi's calm voice was threaded with alarm. Long-range scanners picking up to squadrons of heavy assault frigates. They've flanked our position. Arya froze. She had gambled. Everything on that Grav Surf vanish. Now, even if she managed another wormhole jump, the Ghost would emerge into their trap. She forced herself to think, each breath measured. Plot an escape vector through the Epsilon Rift. She ordered. It's narrow, unpredictable, but if we make it through that plasma funnel, they can't chase us. Epsilon Rift, Cal echoed. That's a suicide run, ma'am. It's the only run we've got. Arya dropped into the pilot's chair. Tapping coordinates. Prepare. Jump drive. Override all safety locks. Below decks, the engines roared. Emergency welders hissed on damaged conduits. Outside, the Stellaran frigate's macro beams lit the darkness. Jump drive at 70%. Oleg reported. 10 seconds to charge. Arya's fingers hovered. Countdown. 5, 4, 3. A tumultuous surge of power. rippled through the reactor cores, then jump. The horizon's ghost vanished in a flash of emerald-white light when the starlines resolved again. The ghost floated in the heart of the Epsilon Rift, an electrified labyrinth of superconducting plasma currents. Against the fiery backdrop of the nebula, the corvette's battered silhouette looked like a wounded insect in a furnace. Unbelievable. Oleg breathed. We actually made it. Arya didn't answer. She stared at the tectonic gyrations of the rift, aware that the slightest miscalculation could tear the ship apart. Behind her, the gravsurf modifications glowed faintly, a testament to engineering desperation. A red warning flashed. Jump drive coils overheating. Drives venting. Chief Engineer Soto announced. We need to stabilize, or we'll rip the thing apart. Arya's jaw clenched. They were trapped between the maw of the rift and the suffocating net of Stellaran warships. The Horizon's ghost had bought them time, but time was money the universe didn't have. She straightened, determination hardening her features. Set course for Galia 3. We limp there or die trying. Yes, ma'am, Cal said, voice hushed. As the engines sputtered into reluctant compliance, Arya looked out at the plasma storms battering the hull. She knew the Armada wouldn't rest until every last ember of her ship was snuffed out. But she also knew that if she could reach the fragile colony of Galia and deliver its desperately needed aid, she would show the galaxy that even a single ship, crewed by grim survivors and dreamers, could defy the unstoppable and rewrite fate. And as the Horizon's ghost limped onward through the firestorm, Arya Chen vowed they would pay a price for this assault, and it would be the Stellaran Armada's own undoing. Lieutenant Arya Chen stared at the shipboard chronometer, the seconds ticking by like distant gunshots in her mind. The Horizon's ghost limped through the Epsilon Rift's plasma currents, its hull scarred and smoking, jump coils venting superheated, steam. Every gauge on the bridge blinked warnings. Every officer moved with grim efficiency. Supplies meant for Galia 3 med kits, fusion generators, hydroponic seeds lay boxed in the hold, untouched and desperately needed. Arya tapped her calm badge. Engineering. Report. Chief Engineer Soto's voice crackled through the static. Drives stabilized at 40% capacity. We can limp to Galia 3, but only if we conserve power. Shields at 35%, weapons offline until we recharge. We'll need at least 2 hours in system to fully patch. Arya exhaled. 2 hours was a lifetime when the Stellaran Armada was hunting you. But every second counted for Galia's. Colonists understood. Patch what you can. I'll brief the crew. She rose and crossed to the central holotable. The rest of her command team gathering around Oleg to hear, pale but resolute, Sanvi Aerosmith. Eyes alight with strategic calculation, Cal Rodriguez, gripping the pilot's console. We made it through the rift, Arya began, her voice steady despite the exhaustion drumming in her bones. But we can't take another full-on engagement. Our only hope is to slip into Galia E's atmosphere like a whisper. She tapped the table, conjuring a 3D model of the planet. Their orbital beacon is operational but runs on an antiquated transponder. If we attempt a standard docking, we'll broadcast a cluster signature and draw every enemy sensor in the system. Sanvi frowned. We can't maintain jump drive charge long enough to cloak and vault in semi-stealth. Arya shook her head. No, once we enter atmosphere, the ionized plasma trail will mask our signature. We'll appear as a meteor storm to distant scanners. It's our only shot. Cal hesitated. Atmospheric entry in a torn hull. We'll burn half the plating off. I know, Arya said softly. But our mission is to save lives. We can't sit here watching the colony starve. Below decks, the muffled clang of repair drones and welders spurred her resolve. She keyed her calm. All hands, brace for atmospheric entry. Deploy inertial dampeners. Seal non-essential compartments and load supplies into the re-entry pod. The response was instantaneous. The bridge fell silent, as if the entire crew held its breath in anticipation. Admiral Calaveran sat alone in the Imperious Flames briefing chamber, the glow of tactical holoboards reflecting in her storm-gray eyes. The room was built for grand councils and strategic deliberations. Now it felt cavernous and cold. Reports poured in. The ghost had slipped the main net, disappeared through an uncharted rift. The Armada's dreadnought squadrons were regrouping, but the SEAL Team Marines clamored for capture orders, hoping to seize contraband tech rumored to be aboard. Viren's gauntlet tapped against the table. "I want the ghost alive, but I refuse to torch a burning world in the process." Her voice was level, unyielding. Her first officer, Commander Rel Donrose, shifted in his seat. "With respect, Admiral, the Council demands absolute eradication. They see this as a test of our will. Let it slip through our fingers again, and our enemies will take heart." Kala closed her eyes. Memories flickered, the scorched ruins of her homeworld's moon, decimated by punitive bombardment in her youth, the faces of refugees floating in lifeboats when peace talks collapsed, the realization that vengeance begets ruin. Then let them have the ghost, but not at the cost of Galia the Third's children. Donrose's stare was icy. "You're defying direct orders. I'm preventing a genocide," Kala countered. "If you need to relieve me of command, you know where the council seat is." He rose, jaw clenched, but did not challenge her further. Instead, he bowed curtly and left the chamber. Kala exhaled, hands pressed to her temples. She had just gambled her career and perhaps her life on a single Corvette survival. The Horizon's ghost shuddered as its heat shields flared against Galia E's atmosphere. Outside the cockpit viewport, the sky blazed with violet trails, loading dozens of reflective meteorites that would briefly outshine the colony's twin suns. "Brace!" Arya shouted. The ship groaned, gravity plating groaned in protest, and the inertial dampeners flared to life. For a heartbeat, every crew member felt the crushing weight of deceleration and invisible hammer, pressing them into seats. Then, with a resounding crack, the guidance fins deployed. The ghost carved a narrow corridor through the upper atmosphere, its hull blistering and peeling in places. Below, sprawling fields of domed habitats and hydroponic greenhouses came into view. Galia's fragile lifely. "Atmospheric entry successful," Cal announced, voice strained. "We're at 20 clicks altitude. Beacon signal is green." Oleg crossed his arms. "Local arrays are up. We won't be detected until we're inside the no-fire zone." "Good," Arya said. "Stand by for docking sequence non-violent." As the ghost descended toward the primary landing platform, remote-controlled tugs latched onto the re-entry pod, guiding it down the final kilometers. The docking clamps engaged with a series of thuds, the airlock hissed, and the ramp folded. "Open!" Arya exhaled, loosening her shoulders for the first time in hours. "We made it!" Behind her, the crew erupted in relief and then silent awe as the colony's governor, Dr. Alara Yanis, appeared on the docking platform. She wore a patched uniform and exhaustion in her eyes, but her gaze blazed with hope. Arya stepped forward, removing her helmet. The humid air of the terraformed world smelled of ozone, earth, and promise. "Governor Yanis," she called. "We're here to help." Yanis rushed up, tears glinting in her eyes. 20 days, Lieutenant. 20 days without fresh water filtration. The hydroponics failed yesterday." She nodded toward the cargo bay doors, where rows of sealed crates stood ready. "You've saved us." Arya shook her head. "We're not safe yet. The Stellarin Armada is still en route." Yanis's lips trembled. "They'll slaughter everyone, unless..." At that moment, a thunderous roar echoed from the sky. A fleet of Stellarin assault frigates broke through the low clouds, weapons banks illuminated with deadly intent. Drone fighters swarmed like hornets. Panic spread across the landing field. "Everyone back!" Arya shouted, rushing toward the ramp. "Security teams, seal the hangar." But before her orders could ripple through the colony's defenses, a blistering volley of plasma lances struck the platform's generator pylons. Explosions rocked the ground, sending plumes of dust skyward. Arya spun, heart pounding. Her vision tunneled on a single target, a massive frigate descending, its hull gleaming under firelight. A boarding ramp extended, disgorging Marines in black-plated armor. Stellarin Marines. She muttered, "But Admiral," a sudden crackle in her comm channel cut through her thought. "Horizon's ghost, this is Admiral Viren. Cease fire. Protect the colony." Arya froze as the message repeated. Across the sky, Stellarin ships hove to. Weapons arrays powered down, then shut off engines idling in eerie silence. A single frigate's boarding ramp retracted. The Marine squads halted, their armored forms standing motionless against the dusty backdrop. Arya's jaw dropped. She actually did it. She keyed her calm back. "Admiral Viren, we read you. Thank you." Viren's voice sounded strained but resolute. "Lieutenant Chen, I cannot obey the Council's scorched earth mandate. Galia III has suffered enough. Stand down and let peace begin." Arya stepped onto the landing pad, arms raised in surrender and relief. Around her, the stunned colonists realized the fleet would not destroy them. Governor Yanis fell to her knees, hands pressed to her heart. Arya felt something shift inside her, a spark of possibility. They had defied the unstoppable, and the Armada had stood down. In that moment, she understood the true price of a legend, not blood or rubble, but the courage to change fate. And as the twin suns set over Galia III, painting the sky in shades of lavender and gold, Arya Chen and Admiral Kala Viren looked to one another across the ruined landing platform, then saw the first flicker of a new dawn. The rising twin suns of Galia III cast long, golden sweeps across the battered landing platform. Morning dust still hovered in the heat-hazed air, drifting lazily among overturned crates and scorched earth. In the hour since Admiral Viren's broadcast, silence had settled like a fragile truce broken only by the hiss of vented thrusters and the distant clang of repair teams at work. Lieutenant Arya Chen stood at the foot of the ramp, her boots sinking into the coarse regolith. Behind her, the horizon's ghost loomed, swollen with its scars, ablative tiles missing, hull plating scorched, but still upright. Half a dozen tugs and maintenance drones clustered around its warp nutshells, splicing cables, welding patches, and coaxing life back into compromised reactors. Governor Alara Yanis approached on unsteady legs, draped in an officer's jacket, borrowed from an ensign and smeared with grease. Her eyes were rimmed red with exhaustion and relief. "You've given us a miracle," she said quietly. "I never dared hope we'd see dawn." Arya allowed herself a tired smile. "We all made sacrifices, but Galia's survival, that was never in doubt." She gestured to the horizon, where Stellaran frigates hovered just beyond the outer rings of the colony's defense perimeter, engines idling in formation. Admiral Viren could have eradicated this world, but she chose not to. "She's keeping them in orbit as long as we need." Yanis nodded, brow furrowing. "Diplomacy is as vital as firepower. Now we must prove our worth as allies." She glanced down at the crates. "These supplies water purifiers, fusion cores, crop cultivators. They'll restore hydroponic farms and power grids. Officials are already organizing distribution." Arya crouched beside an open crate, inspecting the neatly packed cylinders of filtered water. "Then let's get to work. I'll lead the tech teams in the hydroponic bays. We've got to get these seeds in nutrient solution before the next sun cycle." An uproar of mechanized footsteps drew their attention. Admiral Kala Viren strode onto the platform, her uniform unadorned by medals, but immaculate beneath a sheen of sweat. A handful of senior Stellaran officers flanked her grim-faced Marines, engineers clutching datapads, and to Council envoys, Lieutenant Chen, Viren began, voice low but firm. "I trust you can forgive the Armada's impatience." Arya rose and saluted. "Admiral, you gave your fleet orders I never expected. My crew and I are in your debt." Viren's gaze swept across the colony. "I do it again. The Council pressures us to demonstrate strength, but true power lies in restraint. Today, we show the galaxy that mercy can be as potent as a weapon." Behind them, Yanis folded her arms. "The colonists are bracing for potential hostilities. Your presence is a double-edged reassurance. Will the Armada remain? Will you defend us if the Council changes its mind?" Viren's eyes darkened with resolve. "I cannot promise my superiors won't question this ceasefire, but I will stand with Galia III for as long as I hold command. I'll negotiate a lasting treaty that binds our fates together. These people are our partners, not pawns." A murmur of gratitude rippled through the gathered engineers and colony leaders. Even the Stellaran Marines relaxed their rigid posture, boots scuffing the platform with cautious hope. Governor Yanis stepped forward. "Then let us begin. Tomorrow, I propose a joint task force your engineers alongside ours to restore the water reclamation plant. We'll also send a delegation to the outbound council chamber on Stellara Prime to discuss trade agreements and security pacts. Viren inclined her head. A wise plan. I'll dispatch my envoy immediately. She paused, meeting Arya's eyes. And you, Lieutenant Chen, will be my personal liaison. Your actions became legend overnight. The council will want a debrief. You, perhaps even court-martial you. Are you prepared? Arya exhaled, resting a hand on the charred railing of the Ghost's airlock. I'll answer for every decision. If standing by this colony means facing the council's wrath, then so be it. I'd rather lose my rank than lose my soul. A rare flicker of admiration crossed Viren's face. Then let us walk together. She turned toward the colonists, raising her voice so everyone could hear. People of Galia 3, know this, you fought the abyss with hope, and you won. The United Terran Commonwealth and the Stellaran Armada stand with you as friends. A cheer erupted, mingled with the rumble of tractors transporting purifiers and crop trays. Arya watched as colonists, farmers, engineers, children welcomed the Stellaran officers, exchanging guarded smiles and nervous handshakes. Later, as the sun dipped beneath the western dome walls, Arya stood alone on the observation deck of the Horizon's Ghost. The docking lights cast long shadows across decks where plasteel and scrubbers now worked in concert. Below, the colony's glow began to twinkle, a sign of life rekindled. Her calm badge chirped. Lieutenant, it's Ensign to hear. On screen, she replied. Oleg's face flickered to life. Weary but bright. Hydroponic arrays are at 40% capacity. The first harvest should be ready in 70 hours. The tech teams and local volunteers are optimistic. Arya let a tired laugh escape. That's incredible. And what of the Stellaran engineers? They've already integrated 2 more reactor cores. You were right, they know a thing or two about fusion systems. He hesitated. Ma'am, there's something else. Across the sector, word of the Ghost's defiance is spreading. Independent colonies are requesting escorts. Frontier traders want to hire us. Seems our legend has outpaced our reputation. Arya gazed at the horizon, where the Stellaran frigates now gleamed. With the lights of cargo transfer vessels, legends are burdens, as much as their shields, Oleg. But if we're to be symbols, then let them stand for hope. She paused. Prepare a mission brief for tomorrow. We sail at first light. Understood, he said, smiling. And ma'am, thank you for trusting me. She nodded. We all earned this, Oleg. Rest now. Tomorrow, we build something that even war can't destroy. As the second sun faded, Arya Chen looked toward the darkening sky, toward the stars that had once promised only oblivion. Now, they beckoned with new purpose, a galaxy torn by ancient grudges, but ripe for healing. The Horizon's Ghost had weathered the storm, and though the price had been high, its crew carried a message that resonated across light years, that even in the void, one spark can ignite a future.